I wanted to talk about your experience in the oil industry. So 25 years, you've been working in the oil industry. You've been not just in America, you've been overseas. You haven't always been around as a father.
No. And I do take responsibility for that.
No, I'm saying though, but at the same, what I'm saying is this, and I don't mean that as a negative. What I'm just saying is the courts will use that as a negative, but you are providing a livelihood. You're providing a house. You're providing future funds for your children's education. You're providing the ability for your wife, and I don't know your wife at all, but if she wanted to stay at home with the kids, to be there so that you have one parent in contact all the time, that the government or some stranger is not raising your children, and you're a bad father because of that.
Yeah. Pretty much. And in fact, that was what the entire dependency case was based on. They said that I was an unfit parent because I traveled for work.
Yeah, that is crazy. I've heard this happening with pilots. I've heard it.
Well, think about it. I mean, if that theory was actually true, then that would mean that every service member is a bad parent.
And it tends to be that way.
Right? You know, I mean, it's like, okay, you join the Army or the Marine Corps or something like that. You go over there, you're fighting, for our freedoms and everything else to provide for your family back home. And all of a sudden you're a bad person because you did that. Yeah. I mean, the way that they look at this is absolutely insane. And that's the huge thing that we really got to look at, is how to hold these judges and these bad lawyers accountable. And my personal opinion is the Bar Association. I mean, nobody wants to talk about that, but my ex-mother-in-law's lawyer in Tucson, Arizona, she refused to serve me papers. I was living in Las Vegas at the time. I had to drive down to Tucson, Arizona. It was all documented in email, that she refused to serve me papers. I had to go to her office to get papers served to me, which is illegal. I turned her into the Bar Association, and the Bar Association flat out told me there's nothing we can do about it. We don't care. Yeah. And it's like, I mean, she broke the law.
That's a minor technicality.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So right now, I don't know how long it's been since you've been divorced and since you've gone through the courts. How long of a battle was it? How much did it cost you? Are you seeing your children right now?
I'm not allowed to see the children at all. I wasn't even able to get phone calls. It was about 5.5 years that I battled through 4 courts, 6 different lawyers. Cost me a little over $200,000.
Did you have to pay your ex-wife's bill as well?
No, they tried to make that happen, but luckily it didn't. That didn't stick. But I think she spent about $16,000 in lawyers during the entire thing, which, I mean, she really didn't even have to spend that. She could have just not even showed up and still won. Yeah. It's been, the last time I saw my children was December 16th, or December 28th, 2016.
That is a shame.
Yeah.
How many children do you have, and how old are they right now?
I have 3 children. My oldest just turned 18. And she doesn't want to have anything to do with me. It's, she's already been brainwashed at that point, thinking that I'm a horrible person.
So before you go on there, I want to address that issue too, because there have been many people that have said, oh, you know what? It just, when they turn 18, they're going to come back to you. And it makes me so upset. They don't understand the brainwashing that takes place. And they are not prophets that they can see this in the future. This is just a treatism that they use to try to make you feel like, oh, it's going to be okay. It's not okay. It is destructive and it's evil.
And it's not going to get any better until we change it. Right. And you're absolutely right. It is destructive and it is evil. If you look at 5 years of not seeing your child, that's a lot of damage can be done to that child in 5 years.
Right.
And for them to sit back and think that you're this horrible person. Well, I mean, if I was so horrible, why wouldn't I be in jail right now? Why would there would be criminal charges? There would be some kind of something if I was really that bad person. I wouldn't be here at CPAC spending my own money trying to make change if that was the case. Yeah. If I was really this horrible person, I wouldn't be here. I'd be in hiding, Yeah. And when we look at that, there's a ton of fathers out there that are doing the same thing, that are trying to make changes. And again, we're told to shut up, just keep working, keep your mouth shut, don't talk about it.
Pay your child support.
Pay your child support or go to jail, and which is another crazy thing. I mean, that's called a debtor's prison. You know what I mean? If you owe back child support, which is usually just based off of what the judge hears and the fact that they want more money for their state, not based on actual facts of what the father actually makes, in a lot of cases, not all, but in a lot of cases. And we got to sit back and look at that and go, well, do we really have a deadbeat dad problem, or are we being forced to be deadbeat dads?
Well, and I don't even like the term deadbeat. I mean, what about the deadbeat? There are some deadbeats, no doubt, deadbeat dads and deadbeat moms, and there are deadbeat attorneys that are even worse than deadbeats because they're racketeering attorneys. But to your point about maximizing child support, in the Texas Family Code 201-107C, it specifically states that judges are supposed to issue orders or to rule in such a manner so as to maximize Title 4D funding. This is the mandatory. You are supposed to make a ruling.
They talk on the most amount of money you could get out of Social Security funds for your state.
Right. And I mean, they talk about the best interest of the child. They've never defined what the best interest of the child is. Nobody knows what the best interest of the child is. But when it comes right down to making a decision, the decision is based purely on monetary gain. What can we get from Title 4D?
And it spreads through all this, like we touched on a little bit earlier. I mean, if you can pull the father out of the child's life, not only do you maximize your profits for the state and for the bar association and for lawyers and everybody involved except for the father and actually the mother in a lot of cases, because they really don't benefit that much off of it either. If you're able to do that, well, you're also maximizing the benefits for the private prison systems. You're also maximizing the benefits for, I mean, it spreads into so many different things.
Right. Remedial classes at schools. I mean, there's all sorts of things,
counselors, and
mental health. Yeah, exactly. There's a whole industry that's developed around this.
Exactly. I mean, and one thing that I do want to touch on too is a lot of people think that Child Protective Services, for instance, is a government industry. It's not. They're not a government agency. They are a private corporation. And more people that realize that, if you think about it this way, what if Walmart, being a corporation, were to come in and start taking children away? People would flip out, right? We would be looking at that going, that's trafficking children. What are you doing? But when a corporation can actually come in and do this, charading like they are actually a government entity, nobody bats an eye.
Right. Yeah, and there was a gentleman I was speaking with yesterday, and he talks about the children that are in CPS custody, as you mentioned, all of these things. But what are the longer term results to them too? How often are they being abused in a foster care situation,
bounced around and from place to place, and never having any kind of security, never feeling safe or at home, because I mean there's a lot that goes on with that. When I can't remember where I heard this from, but I think it was actually a movie that I watched at one point where they were talking about the foster kids keep all of their stuff in a trash bag because they don't know where they're going to be next time, and they can't feel secure. That's actually a real thing. People don't realize that when you start doing this to children, it's sick and wrong, first of all, and to put them in that type of a position, especially for monetary gain, is unreal.
And what gets me is how we are supposed to give respect and deference and awe to this whole system.
Right? They're doing good. They're doing good. No, they're not. They're absolutely not. In my personal opinion, they are trafficking children for profit, and I will flat out say that.
Yeah.
And I'll say it over and over again.